human memory? Starting with the introduction, what is human memory? Human memory is very simple to understand. Memory means whatever information is there have to store in memory, can store permanently or temporary. That is the different thing, but data information you can store in memory, and when it is needed or requirement is there, then can retrieve at that time. So storage of information and retrieval of information is primary function of the memory, and these two function is implementing basically in human memory. And there are three variants of human memory. We'll see in details. Types of memory. There are three types of memory. The first one is sensory memory. Second one is a short-term memory, and third one is a long-term memory. Sensory memory, or people calling it as a sensory buffer, short-term memory or working memory. So let us see one by one. First, sensory memory. The sensory memory acts as buffer for stimuli received through the senses. A sensory memory exists for each sensory channel. Iconic memory for visual stimuli, echoic memory for hearing stimuli, haptic memory for touch stimuli. So what is the sensory memory? Let us start with the sensory memory. In this there are two words, one is sensory and another one is a memory. We know the meaning of memory, but what is sensory? Sensory means our senses, that is human senses. There are three main senses, three major senses. Your side, that is eye, hearing and touch. So what is happening? These are senses generating or producing the stimuli. What is sensory memory? The sensory memory is acting as a buffer. It is simply acting as a buffer for a stimuli which is received by the senses, as simple as that. So sensory memory is acting like buffer for stimuli those who have received from the senses of the human. Types of sensory memories. There are three types of sensory memories. The first one is iconic memory, second one is echoic memory, and third one is a haptic memory. So there is thing here is that the sense channel we have like visual sense, visual stimuli, hearing stimuli, haptic stimuli. So here our respective sensory memory is there. There exists sensory memory for every sensory channel. It is the main point need to understand. Also for visual stimuli, for that I have iconic memory for specifically respective that stimuli. Then hearing stimuli, for that I have iconic memory, and for touch I have haptic memory. These three names are very important and these are related with which respective stimuli, that is also important. Now what is happening? There is my sensory memory. Everything is starting from here. What is it getting? It is getting sense. One type of data information is getting, that is stored in your sensory memory. It is true, but nature of this can override the information. It can get changed with the time when new experience is getting. So here in your sensory memory it can override. From this sensory memory we have to move toward the short term memory by focusing on attention. It is very important word, attention. What you mean by attention? Now see, sensory memory is there, many senses are there, but from that I have to give the important to the only some senses and other I have to filter out. So this filtering you can do by giving attention to the respective senses. In this way you can carry out the filtering process. For example, with blindfold, if object is given to your hand and you have to touch and guess what object is that, so it will be task for you. Now you can't see that object, so you have to touch, and by touching you can easily recognize what is that object. So that time stimuli of your touch will have very importance, and rest of the stimuli will be filtered out. So attention of all will be on touch stimuli only. Let us take the second example. While driving the car, our visual stimuli is having the very much importance because it is the stimuli that is used while driving for safety, and other stimuli will be filtered out. So in the mind, many stimuli are present and we are trying to concentrate at one place. That is what we are trying to achieve. That is what we are trying to do. If I am taking the I am talking about the iconic memory. For that we can take the same example of blindfold, and task is given that the tune will be played and you have to identify the direction from where it is coming. So you have to sense that, and on the basis of that we have to find from which direction the voice is coming. So here importance will be given to hearing stimuli for that respective instance, for that respective period. In that particular instance, what you are doing, you are giving importance to that stimuli because you are interested or need is there, so that's why you have to give the importance to that stimuli. That is what we are calling it as attention. After respective filtering, what is our information that is reaching in our short term memory. Next, short term memory. So what is short term memory? Short term memory, or a short means less time temporarily. If we have to store the data for short time, then memorize short term memory. Also, if you want to recall temporarily for any information, then also you can memorize to short time memory. By taking example, the short term memory will be cleared where you are using the short term memory. For example, the example 1 is given, multiplication of 38 into 5. Okay, so if someone don't know the table of 38, then what he will do, he will split 38 into two parts, that is 30 into 5 and 8 into 5. 30 into 5 becomes 150 and 8 into 5 becomes 40. So by adding them it becomes 190, that is equal to 38 into 5. So during this process we have to store both intermediate steps temporarily in our memory to get the desired output. So here we are using our short term memory. Okay, so if any person he don't know the table of 38 or he don't remember, then he can simply split that number into the two parts. Okay, that is 30 and 8, and multiplying by 5, and what will be the output, adding them will be the final answer. So that was the example first. Let us see the second example. Second example is English question paper. Okay, the question is there. Carefully read this passage and answer the questions given below. After reading that passage, we have to read the question and have to find the answers of the questions. So I have to store temporarily the information from starting to end and need to understand what is context, where what story is exactly there, okay, and what it will be used for answer. So according to there, here also we are using short term memory. So it is fact that access time for short term memory is less as compared to long term memory. That means the time which is required for the short term memory is very less as compared to the long term memory. Also the capacity of short term memory is very less. How? For that we can take the example. The example is, let us take the number 7610531594. Okay, so the number is written, and what you have to do, store this number as it is on temporary basis, and then have to write on paper sequence should be same, there will be no mistakes in that. So generally on an average 7 plus or minus 2, that much of digits people can write correctly, okay, and it is the average case. So you can determine the capacity of short term memory from that, how much it is less. So I have to increase the capacity. So what I will do, I will play this smart move. So what I will do, I will group that numbers, okay, uh, group of digits called as a chunk. There is no limitation of numbers in chunks. It can contain 2 or 3 numbers in one chunks. The benefit of writing into chunks is that you can remember 7 plus minus 2 number of chunks at a time, and it is increasing the capacity of short term memory. So as you can see, the number 7610531594 is written in the form of group. Okay, 76 is the one group, 10 is the another group, 5315 and 94, these are the different group. These are nothing but the chunks. Okay, the benefit of writing into the chunks will help you to remember easily that number. Next, long term memory. So what is long term memory? Let us see in the detail what is the long term memory. Long term memory is a main source, it is a main storage. Whatever there in your long term memory, whatever stored in your long term memory, that defines you, it defines your individuality. Who are you? On the basis of that you are interacting in your environment. That is very important, and that is main resource. If I compare long term memory with short term memory, so in the comparison of short term memory, the memory of long term memory is more. Also, access time for short term memory is very less as compared to the long term memory. In short term memory you are memorizing things very less as compared to the long term memory, but in long term memory you are remembering the things for the long period of time. Types of long term memory, there are two types of long term memory. First one is episodic memory and the second one is a semantic memory. Let us see the first types, episodic memory. What is episodic memory? In episodic memory, in your life, whatever events are there, actions are there, experiences are there that defining to your life, we are remembering them in one sequence. Example, for example, you started your education, you completed your 10th, 12th, graduation and MS. Also with that, you learn to how to drive the car, etc. So this is the journey, okay, is nothing but events in your life. It defines your life, so it is episode in your life and it is stored in your episodic memory. Next, semantic memory. So what is semantic memory? Whatever lifelong in your life, whatever skill you have learned, whatever facts you have learned, whatever knowledge you have acquired, all these things are present in your semantic memory. Also, there are another things in semantic memory to discuss. So let us see that semantic memory is one type of structure. Okay, so let us see. Okay, so in the semantic memory structure, the one form is network form. Okay, so let us see in the figure. Okay, so suppose it is in the network form, then it will look like this. In this, the dog is an animal eats animal, moves. Okay, so dog has four legs, dog has tail, dog barks, sleeping dog is a dog. Okay, so these are the entities. So it is one type of complex network. Okay, it is simple sample. What is this semantic network is giving us the information. So as you can check, the information is given in the form of network. Okay, so you will ask only this structure is available for the semantic memory. Okay, so there is another structure is also available for the semantic memory, and it is called as a frame based structure. So what is happening in the frame based structure, we will see in the next slide. Okay, so this is the semantic memory structure in the frame based form. So in that the entity is dog. Okay, so to remember that there is another structure, frame based structure. It is the type of the like letter type structure. Okay, so entity is written dog, parameters are fixed. Okay, fixed parameters are legs are 4, that is fixed. Then default diet is carnivorous and sound is bark. Then variable parameters are colors and size. Okay, both may differ. Okay, color may be red, black or white, and size may be small, medium or big. Okay, so all this information is frame based structure of this respective entity, that is dog. Next, important things in the long term memory. So there are three important things in the long term memory. First one is information store, then loss of information, and third one is retrieval of information. So let us see one by one in the detail. So starting with the information store. What is the information store? So in the information store, how will you store the information? Whatever information is coming in your short term memory, you are passing that memory in the long term memory. But when you are exposing any respective stimuli again and again, repeating again and again, practicing it again and again, so repeated exposure of a stimuli gets that experience, gets that whatever information to the long term memory. For example, you have learned to drive the bicycle, or you have learned driving the car. That skill set is stored in your mind for a long time. You learn swimming, so that thing also you stored in your mind for lifelong. You will never forget this. Also controls and moves of walking you have learned, and it is also stored in your mind. Then second one, loss of information. So in the loss of information, as we know that we are the human and we are forgetting sometimes. So why it is happening? How it is happening? Because of interference. Now what is interference? Interference is some old information you was having, and now you have received new information, and what happened, the new information masked to old information, and due to that you forgot old information and remembered new information. For this calling as a retroactive interference. Example, in the mobile phone I have old number, but it is not in my use. So what I did, I removed that number and inserted another new number. Now what will happen, the new number masked to old number, and that information get lost. Now old number is not in my use, but new number is in my use, because I will be using that number and I will provide that number to others for contacting me, and that's why I will remember that number in my mind, and I will forget old number because now it is not in use. So that is the loss of information. Now the third one is retrieval of information. So what is happening in the retrieval of information? How you can retrieve? Sometimes you are recalling, sometimes you are recalling the some things when it is required, or it is needed, or it is necessary. Okay, so the retrieval is reproducing the information from the memory is called recall. Sometimes you have to recognize the clue is given to you and you have to recognize. For example, like guess who is this, something is coming in front of you, and that is the clue for you to retrieve the information out, and that is called recognition. Some are recalling, some are recognizing for retrieval of information. So that was the retrieval of information, and all is about the human memory of the short term memory and the long term memory with the sensory memory. So all these three types is clear, that is short term memory, long term memory and the sensory memory. Thank you.